Hey guys, I'm back. Uh, Pretty proud because I've managed to commit to making these short little videos, and for me, that's huge. Life can get away from me pretty quick. Busy season is here and traveling a lot, so it's pretty neat to be able to sit down and actually have an outline and an idea and plans for future videos. So super excited. Um, this week's video is about keyboard shortcuts. And as I've been working with people in these one-on-one sessions, it's been pretty amazing the reaction that I get from, using these hotkeys and these keyboard shortcuts and how efficient it makes using Photoshop. Obviously, it just comes with lots of practice and stuff like that, but uh, even just these few that I'm going to show you guys today, I think is going to be really helpful. Um, these are just the ones that I would kind of use on a regular basis in almost every workflow for every image. And they're just ones that come up a lot. And um, I'm just going to try to quickly go through them. I can't spend, all the time I would want to explain all of these things, but yeah, I'll try to get through as many as I can, and hopefully you guys will find them useful and you'll want to include them in your workflow. Here we have an image from the Yukon last year. It's an amazing trip. This was kind of the scene we rolled up to when hiking from Talus Lake to Divide Lake. A little over 3 miles. My pack was into the 100-pound range. Um, it had rained on us the whole time. Anyway, just using it as an example, it's a shot I'm probably going to process here pretty soon, finally. But anyway, let's get into the weeds here. So, probably the one that I use most, the most complicated, is the stamp visible layer. To my knowledge, there's no place in the menu system that you can go to click a button and make this happen. I think some panels probably have it. Makes sense. It's easy enough to make an action out of, but it's also pretty easy once you get used to the finger maneuver. It's a bit like Twister, to just do this, as a reflex. And that one is Command, Option, Shift, and E. For you Mac folks. So PC people, that's going to be Control, Alt, Shift, and E. Okay. Um, and that's going to kind of be the same with all of these. PC is PC and Mac is Mac. I use a Mac, so natively I'm going to teach using Mac shortcuts, but I will try to remember to give you the equivalent in PC language. So bear with me on that one. Okay, so that was number one. Number two is how quickly you can change opacity of a brush or a clone stamp tool, or anything that uses opacity. You just simply hit the number keys on your keyboard. So one is let me click over here. One is 10. We see here this changing. Two is 20. Three is 30, so on and so forth. And that makes, changing opacities of a brush, especially if you're not using a Wacom tablet, really, really handy, because you can just really quickly change from using 10% opacity to 90, and you don't even have to think about it. So that's number two. Use that constantly. Zooming. It's amazing to me how many people will go all the way up here to view and they'll zoom in when here's another trick. Most of the shortcuts that you can do in Photoshop are all there for you already. They're all here. These little symbols here, those are the keyboard shortcuts. That's Photoshop telling you if you hit Command and plus, you can zoom in. And that's what we're going to do right now. If we hit Command or Control for you PC folks and plus, we zoom in incrementally. watch the zoom down here in the bottom left corner from 25 to 33 to 50, 66, so on and so forth. And Command 0 to bring us back to fit screen. Use that all the time as well. Now, if you're a mouse user, I am a Wacom tablet user, but only when I am painting, when I am masking and brushing in adjustments and painting light in and dodging and burning. I use my mouse for pretty much everything, anything slider driven. And then sometimes I even get lazy and I will use the mouse for doing the dodging and burning and all of that. But you know, that's where my trigger fingers over here on the number pad, and I am swapping back and forth between opacities to make sure that, you know, it's feathered seamlessly. So yeah, that's great. That's zooming in and out. No, I'm sorry, I forgot. If we go Option and we scroll, Alt or Option, and we scroll in and out with our finger on our mouse, either you have that little wheel or you're just using like a, you know, Apple Magic Mouse, same applies. You can zoom in and out that way. That's really useful, very handy, and it's going to zoom in wherever you have your cursor. So if I'm over here and I zoom in, boom, I can zoom in really far. For me, I basically make a hard selection of every single sky, whether it's going to get added to, replaced, or what. I want to be able to isolate that sky and do whatever I want to it. So a lot of times I'm zoomed in super duper far with my lasso tool. Some people use the pen tool for this. I like to use the lasso tool. You make a selection, you hold shift, and you can just keep adding to it. So this line, if you will, sort of traces the horizon of anything. So if we were to do that down here, just be looping it around, shift to add to that, Option to subtract from that, which brings us into the next one, which is selections. Your selection tool is just a very quick M, brings up your selection tool. I'm sorry, it brings up your shape selection tool. So you've got a rectangular marquee tool, your elliptical marquee tool, single row, single column. I don't really ever use these. I'm shooting for the lasso tool, which is in fact L. And you know, shift to add to that selection, Option or Alt to subtract from that. So I make a hard selection like that, zoomed in super duper far, so that that Option scroll is really helpful for me. The next one's going to be brush size. That one's really super easy. You've got a Command D to deselect. You've got a bracket key, a left and a right bracket key. And if we switch over here to our brush, so you can see my cursor here. If I hit left bracket key, it makes it smaller. If I hit right bracket key, it makes it bigger. And you know, if you're not using a Wacom and you're not using you know, the finger shortcut on the buttons, or you know, something, there is also a keyboard shortcut. I believe it's Option Command, and no, I don't remember. It's one that I don't use very often because I'm just so used to using the bracket keys. You just minus or left bracket, right bracket, and use that a lot. The next one's going to be making an active selection of something. Let's say we've got a layer here. Let's use our lasso tool, L for lasso. We'll just make a circle and we'll use just any random adjustment here. And we get a mask, and we can make a selection of this. Let's say later on down the line in the workflow, we want to go back and do something specifically to that little area. We can come back here and kind of steal this layer mask, and for you guys, it's Alt or Option and click on the mask to show you the mask overlay. And you know, this is kind of evidence that when you use these keyboard shortcuts, it becomes second nature. And I'm using them, you know, even when I was sitting here and writing the list of the ones that I wanted to bring up, I wasn't even thinking of half of the ones I've used already. So they're so valuable and they're so great to work in your workflow because it just makes things so effortless. So yeah, anyway, we can make an active selection of this, and how we would do that is by holding Command or Control and clicking on that mask, on whatever is in that mask that is 50% gray or brighter. is going to be selected by this function. So it's always going to favor um, the lighter pixels unless you hold Option, I believe. So if you're trying to make a selection, this is the way to do it. You just make an active selection, and then on the next layer, or the layer on later on down the line, when you're, say using a blank layer to dodge, you could make this active selection and then paint through it as a stencil. So that's something that I use all the time. Um, it's just infinitely helpful, and in fact, in my workflow, a lot of times over in my channels, I'll have just a whole list of selections that I have saved as alpha masks so that I can go back and kind of grab them later on and dodge and burn, so I don't have to do more work or do the same work twice and work harder. Always work smarter. Also, you guys, don't mind the AC. It's Phoenix. It is so hot, and I'm sitting right next to my window here, so hopefully you guys don't hear too much of the AC. But yeah, that's how you handle that, and that's how you make an active selection. So really helpful. Again, Alt or Option to click on the mask to show you the mask overlay. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to transform. Now let's make a copy of this. Command or Control J will make a duplicate, and Command or Control T will allow us to transform. Now, when we transform, we can do a lot of different stuff here. But I'm going to start with just scaling and using Shift and Option or Alt and grabbing from a side will move the opposing side equilaterally. So however far you pull it away from center, the left side is going to mirror that, or the opposing side is going to mirror that, and the same goes for top or bottom. But if you grab the corner, you have kind of free control. It is not locked, it's not fixed to a proportion, so you can kind of distort things here, and sometimes that gets you in trouble. Command or Control Z to undo. If we want to scale something equilaterally in every direction, we would hold Alt or Option and grab a corner or any of the sides. So those are really helpful. Do a lot of transforming. Use that periodically, to shift things in a certain direction or up or down, to fix perspective issues or something like that. While you also have your transform tool up, you can right click and do all this other stuff. You can distort, rotate, change the perspective and warp things. You can kind of do all kinds of crazy stuff here, but that's maybe another video. Yeah, so there's a few more just real quick, easy, just one button shortcuts for, just accessing everyday tools. B for brush tool, that's pretty obvious. C for crop tool. But it's not all of them are that way. Obviously, there are more things that start with C. They can't use C for all of them. So like clone is S. Your marquee tool is M. L for lasso. Q is pretty helpful sometimes. You've got an active selection and you are painting in some light, and you really want to see what it is that you're painting. So you can hit Q, and Q brings up the quick mask, and it just kind of shows you the overlay of what is being masked out. So anywhere that is red is not going to be affected if I grab a brush and I start painting in the little area. So that's helpful. Just quick referencing what your selection is, so you know if you've got the right one, if you're targeting the right area with a luminosity mask or something. Okay, and yeah, I think that's it. I think I talked long enough. I probably over explained quite a few of those, few tangents here and there, but yeah, next week's video is gonna be on customizing your workspaces. So we're going to talk about Lightroom and Photoshop and how you can set it up to be more efficient for you, and customize it, with your name or filigree, or just fancy up your Lightroom and make your Photoshop more more custom to your needs and how you work. And we're going to keep coming out with more, hopefully, useful and helpful videos. So yeah, thanks for watching, and stick around for the next